Hey Eli, welcome to the Product Leaders Podcast. How are things with you? All well?
Yeah, really good. Thank you so much for having me here.
Bit of a catch up beforehand. Sounds as though things have jumped forward a little bit for you at Dolphin since we last spoke. So I'm sure we'll dive into that. But sounds like things are really exciting over there. Yeah, maybe we could start talking there. I guess tell me a little bit about what you're up to at the moment. Maybe some like the products you're building right now.
Sure. I mean, I'm so excited to share this. The first time that we talked, we had great energy and great kind of like exchange of ideas. And I think, that's the best conversations happen quite like, in the air. So I think it's great to bring it into our recording. So I'm based in London. I'm one of the co-founders of Dolphin Ai. We are building a data product, which essentially helps to surface customer feedback at scale. So we are taking user feedback that comes from multiple different places, like support chats, tickets, calls with customer success or product managers to users, reviews, surveys, and bring all those qualitative pieces of data into one place that then we can analyze it using AI, machine learning, and different kind of like algorithms to actually find insights.
That sounds great, very exciting, and I think it's at the forefront of not only just kind of the AI world, which is obviously expanding at the moment, but clearly like customer insights and getting that customer feedback is at the absolute core of product management, right? So
completely. I feel that we had great kind of like decade or so with analytical products, like the big product kind of like insights in terms of like what users are doing with your product, and now it's time to understand why they are doing that, and I think that's the key.
That's cool. And you obviously said it's a data product, and I guess maybe we can delve into that a little bit. What for you? What's a data product? What's not a data product? How do you think about that?
I told you this before. I was trying to actually find one answer that is shared across the board, and I think that I'll start with my thoughts on this because we can read all the kind of like articles about it. But I think that a data product is essentially a tool that not only uses data like every tool to be able to present something out, but is actually thought from the get-go as a tool that benefits from data that consumes, but also outputs different type of data from that first set that has a specific use case. So we can almost think about as our brain, which actually is doing this on a constant basis. Even when I try to do the coffee in the morning with my machine at home, it's actually, I'm taking the raw or the capsule and I'm producing the coffee like I like it with milk and sugar. Sorry, I drink it with sugar. That is actually dissecting something that was raw into something that I can drink because I can't do anything with the capsule. So I think that that's a really good example of how I think about data products. They are actually analytically thought and purposely built to be able to do something with the data for a specific use case.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, it's basically
the coffee analogy in the morning.
I think the coffee analogy is a good one. Yeah, it's you can have all this wonderful data in the world, but it's not a data product until it's serving a purpose or adding value to a customer or something like whatever it might be that you have solved that use case. No, definitely agree. Cool. I guess something that I think would be really interesting to chat about is there's obviously through your career, I think it looks as though you've mainly worked in that kind of 0 to 1 space. Obviously, you've been you're on the Antler sort of program as we were there as an entrepreneur, and you've obviously worked in early stage businesses. I think founding several businesses yourself, and then obviously right now co-founding with Dolphin Ai. So you've obviously worked mainly in that kind of 0 to 1 space of late. I guess tell me about that. Tell me about what's that environment like when you're kind of coming up with these ideas of data products you might want to build. What's the kind of process you go through and the thoughts you have?
Sure, it's such a great question, I think, and it's difficult to answer because there is so much that it goes like so many anecdotes that go to my mind. But I'll try to bring 3 examples to this. The first one is I don't come from a tech background, by the way. I come from an events background. I used to be an event director and I had my own company. I've always been an entrepreneur, but when you are building a product, it's a very similar process, at least in the very beginning, to when you're putting on an event, a live event, like it would be a networking event or a wedding or a corporate. You are bringing different parts together that solve a problem or a task or something that you want to achieve. Now they all need to work together at the same time, because you can't have the food alone and then having the DJ alone and then having the invitations. Actually, everything needs to be eclectic because it's different, but also talking the same language. And I think that when you think about products in the very beginning, it's the same, but much more compressed into something very specific and very nuanced, because we can't solve the end-to-end problem in the 0 to 1 phase. But if we focus on a very specific use case, and it needs to be understandable for my little brother that is 10 years old, not for someone that is an expert in that area, that's where great products are built. I believe that great products are built not because they are great to use. Of course, it does play a part, but there are plenty of examples of not great experienced products in the very beginning that solve a real pain and therefore became billion-dollar companies. The clear example is Airbnb, by the way, and it's a big inspiration for me the way that they built this platform. They started because they needed to find a place to sleep for design conferences, and they thought that they could put their flat to rent because they didn't have money to pay the rent. But you couldn't even pay on the platform in the very beginning. There was no map in the platform. It was, a bad experience, but it solved the problem. People needed money, and the other side needed somewhere to stay. So from my experience, I went through Antler, which was an amazing kind of 10-week program where I was every day challenged and every day challenging other people in what shall we build. We were in that stage, we don't even know what we're going to build or with whom. And you're throwing all these ideas, and I care about this area, and I care about this area, and I experienced this problem, and maybe we should change this. What I did learn from all these kind of examples is that in the 0 to 1 phase, and probably later on also, I don't know, hopefully one day I'll be able to tell you in the 10 to a million.
Makes a lot of sense. I've got a few, you said some really interesting things there, which I just want to sort of unpack and do a series of. Firstly, maybe not a question, but you talked about Airbnb. For anyone listening, if you listen to CEO, there's a really good podcast with Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn founder, and he's one of the early investors in Airbnb, so it's worth just listening to him.
Correct. There is an amazing. I heard that one, and it's an amazing Reid, who is, by the way, one of the most amazing people in product in the world, in my opinion, and one of the most successful investors. He talks about he's interviewing Brian Chesky, at least in the episode I heard, and it's essentially the point in the pandemic where Airbnb lost over 90% of their income in a week or something like this. I don't remember exactly, and they had to rethink their problem that they were solving for the time to be able to stay alive. I think they actually had to over-raise again $2 billion, and it was incredible how they went from almost dying to going public. So unbelievable. I think one of the best founders in the world, Brian Chesky, great speaker, very passionate. It shows that it's okay to be yourself.
Yeah, definitely. It was very interesting, the podcast I listened to with Hoffman, for sure. And then I guess I also just wanted to understand, you sort of did the Antler program, and you sort of always worked in this 0 to 1 space. Have you ever considered working as a product manager in a bigger company, not necessarily a big tech company, but just a bigger company? Is that
completely
something that interests you, or have you always sort of been really focused on? If you run your own sort of events company, and I can see you're obviously very entrepreneurial, so you might want to just focus on always that early stage world. But I guess what's your feeling on that?
I love this question. I think that I'll give you kind of a timeline. So I had my own various different companies. I was running my events company. In parallel, I had a theater production company that was benefiting from each other, because essentially they were doing the same thing, just that one was a service and one was actually producing its own work. So it was a lovely kind of I lose money, I make money. That's kind of how it was. And then I lost all my work because of the pandemic. At that point, I actually thought, what can I transfer into tech? And I thought, let's try to be a product manager, because I love products. I love to build new stuff, at least in the 0 to 1 phase. But I never experienced working in a company later, in a growth stage or later stage. So I actually had a huge journey through that, where I actually started to create a CV for the first time, thinking about how to approach, getting a job. So yeah, it was a big part of what made me realize that I think I would love to do it because I think I can learn a lot, and that was my biggest motivator. But then you have this inner voice that says founder mode, founder mode, founder mode, and it's really hard to let go of it. And then you find another problem that you want to solve, like what we're doing with Dolphin, and you find another person that is also excited about it, and you get carried away.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I think I kind of see that, there's the energy that people have around building products. It often is quite separate. Some people are really good at the early stage, and I think it's like it's just sometimes just a skill set as well. Some people are really good at that ideation phase and like shipping something for the first time. Other people are really good at taking it from 0 to 100, or so 1 to 100, or 100 to 1,000, or whatever it might be.
You're so right, and I think that both of us, we need to learn from each other, like in terms of like the different stages. And as I said, I hope I'll graduate and I'll get the opportunity to scale, which is a different problem for products. I mean, today we're starting to get some of these problems where shipping fast is not enough. Anyway, we'll do another podcast when I get there.
Sounds good. And then I guess the last point you sort of made in your initial kind of answer to one of my questions was just around, obviously you met your co-founder, and he said that he's got sort of tech background. But I suppose, at what point did you realize that what you were building, or what you wanted to build, was a data product? Because I guess that's like, why did you know it was that, and you were like, I want to build a data product? Or was it, I don't want to answer your question for you, but I imagine maybe it was, I'm going to answer your question anyway. But I was imagining that it might be that you've kind of found a pain point, and then actually the solution is the data product, and that's maybe how you found it. But you tell me. I'm just interested in that kind of job.
Yes, so I'm finding the questions very good, by the way. So I really enjoyed it. It's really enjoyable to do this for me. So I'll give you a clear example. Our first thought to solve this problem was to build a Slack bot and chat with your data. It's kind of like, and it's funny because my co-founder was building something very similar, but for databases. And I was trying to crack the problem of customer feedback. You can say that it's not the same, but there were a lot of similarities in the way of thinking about it behind the scenes. That first MVP did not work at all. And the more we talked with people, which I think goes back to customer feedback, is like retroactive, gave us the idea that we just had to give them data that they could consume, if that makes sense. Data that can be consumed becomes an insight if it's thought specifically about what someone needs. Yeah, that's how I think about it. Yeah, it was basically how we can start to surface what matters from all this scale kind of like data coming from customer support to product teams.
Yeah, nice. So I guess it was essentially like you worked out this kind of customer problem. You already had an idea of data products out there, and what you might build, and it was kind of an organic sort of journey towards what we are going to build is a data product, essentially.
Yeah, and someone told me it's evolution, not revolution, and I really love that. It's super simple, but it's actually an evolution of the thought process. It's an evolution of the learning of the problem of the user. It's learning of the terminology. It's learning what they actually want from this data, not even from the data product, from their data, what they want. If Dolphin wouldn't be there, how would they solve this themselves? And I constantly go back to that thought on a daily basis. How would they solve this if they wouldn't be a computer that helps them do it? If they would just pen and paper, how would they solve writing down what customer X told me, writing down what customer Y told me? Is it similar? Is it not? So I think that when you think about those steps that we do as a human, it's much simpler to think how we can solve it, not from a human perspective, but for a human.
That makes a lot of sense. So the Dolphin Ai product, can you then, once you've collected this data and you've got like an idea of the customer feedback, could you then pose like another question of, based on the data we have and the feedback we've collected, we're thinking about adding X feature to our product. Is that a good idea? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so you're going front and future, but yes, 100%. So think about a layer. It's a platform that we can connect to all the different, for example, customer support tools, like the Zendesk and intercoms and HubSpot, blah, blah, blah. We can also connect to the communication channels like Slack. Customers are today in Slack. We can also connect to the call recordings like the Gongs, and the TLDVs and the Fadoms and the Google Meets and, whatever, and the Zooms. This is a lot of marketing for a lot of different tools out there. But, these are the stack that today companies use. We can also connect to the reviews sites. We can also connect to the surveys. The important thing of this is that we can bring it to one place, normalize the data, analyze it, surface within this area of the product. These are the top themes. These are the top pain points. These are the top bugs. These are the top questions. It might not be a request, but it might be a series of questions that customers are contacting us about that we can infer there is a lack of knowledge, there is a lack of usability, there is a lack of the bugs that are appearing when I'm trying to, buy something specific. And think about it as the other hand of the product analytics products, where we can actually bring that qualitative data and quantify it. Once we have the actual granular, this is what customers are talking about and why, that's where we can get to the action, which is what you were saying, where a product manager might look at the area of product that they are working on.
Definitely. I mean, it just seems it's invaluable. And I think, the other kind of, maybe not use case, but the other value add, I suppose, is in a product company, the product manager, or maybe like the user research or whoever it is who's gathering that information. You build, as a product manager, you build up so much information around what the customer, how the customer interacts, how they're adopting the product, how they're adopting new features, and as soon as that PM leaves and moves to another company, you just kind of completely lose so much of that information. So having a product that sort of clearly fills in that
completely. I get excited because we call it context. You leave and you lose the context about what the customers need. And in the end of the day, we are here to solve pain points and problems of customers. A bug is something they try to do and they were not able to accomplish because something happened. A question is something that they probably tried to do and they were not able to. So all of this realm of data goes back to the problem of the customer and what we are trying to solve for them. A feature request is actually something they're trying to do and they are thinking this is how they should do it, but it's up to us from the product side to decide what we do. It's our responsibility as product teams to decide what we're going to build and why. That why should be directly linked to the why of the customer. And if it's not, I believe that the companies that can't connect those two will die, and more the customers that put forefront the customer experience and the customer problems in the way they build products will win. And we see that again with Airbnbs of the world, where actually they are very customer centric. I know it's kind of like a big thing in tech, it's like, oh, we're customer centric, talk to your customers. But actually, it does make a difference. And you see that, again, if you can solve someone's problems, they become your biggest advocates. And if they actually enjoy it. So this is the biggest kind of like example of Dolphin that I say, and why I believe this is so important for product teams, is that you have people that talk to customers and you have people that action on the product. If we can bring these two together, sometimes it's the same person, sometimes not, we can build better products.
I love that. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Fantastic. Cool. I think one other thing I just wanted to touch upon as well, when we were chatting before we hit record, but you were talked about building a marketplace product versus building a SaaS subscription product. So you said that one maybe didn't go so well. Tell me about that and your kind of journey there.
Yes, so this is going back to maybe 2020 or 2020 pandemic. I was post events into the tech world. I also believe that you can learn something, by the way, between brackets, I believe you can learn a lot about something very specific in a very short amount of time, where you have a lot of focus and a lot of care and a lot of obsession. So I think these three things sometimes are seen as bad things in the world, but actually they deliver very great results, that obsession of something. And that's what happened to me. I didn't have a tech background and I learned a lot about product. I still have a lot to learn like everybody, but you can learn a lot about something in a very short amount of time. That's the time where I got into Antler, and Antler should thank, after I said so many times Antler, by the way. Now I have so many friends that after went through Antler. It's a great program where you can meet co-founders. I met mine there, I will be forever grateful. So I was building, I've always had a hobby, which is dancing. I was ballet dancer. I was a folk dance teacher that traveled all around the world. If you put my name on Google, you will find me dancing weird places, weird dancing, and I still do it. And one of my thoughts was like, we are at home, people can't leave, can we bring everybody together to dance from my living room? And it did happen. And not knowing what actually a tech product was, I was able to build a platform that got to over 150 people from all the world subscribed, paying a subscription fee every month for different tiers of subscription, like for consuming recorded content, live content, mixed content, getting the music, getting the lyrics, blah, 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 and packaging it in a way that was easy for them to access, so that they didn't need to think what's the time of the class and then bring in more classes so that they get more value without paying more. Because there were no options of leaving your house to go to do that class somewhere. Plus also it didn't matter where you were, because now you could dance with me even if you were in Argentina, where I'm from originally, which did happen. So it started with just a Google form link, a PayPal link, and a Zoom link. There was no product, but that was the product to start with. That got me quite far, and then I built a platform. That was a subscription model that did really well. But then there was this thought that, can I open these to anybody else who wants to teach in their house without needing, maybe they don't want to take my class. It's kind of like quite obvious when you think about these problems after. And yes, it was a great problem to solve. The vision was to build a marketplace that became the home of hobbies, in the way as Airbnb is the home of any kind of like property that you can rent, from like a castle to, you know, a room, being that eBay of hobbies, of activities that we want, that you can do, starting with dance, because that's what I know. So great concept, great vision. It just didn't work. Marketplaces are a beast in itself, are like a little ecosystem where you're messing with multiple different type of personas to make the product work. You're not just addressing a use case like with a SaaS or subscription. Hey, you're at home, you can't leave, do you want to dance? Subscribe. Marketplace, you're actually needing, in my case, to bring a bunch, if not hundreds, to start with, of different type of teachers that teach in different languages, in different places in the world, that teach different type of sessions and classes in different timings, because in Australia I had someone that wanted to dance with me and they just could.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. I think it's really, I love like the organic product thoughts that you have as well. I guess maybe we're running out of time a little bit, but I think maybe the kind of final point, you know, I think it's I love how you've approached product management, and it's kind of, it's grown, it's just something you kind of learned along the way by the sound of things, and clearly, yeah, intelligent person who's read books and, you know, that kind of thing, and you've to keep learning, go to knowledge. But I guess you haven't come from that maybe traditional, you know, product background where you've grown up in a tech company, or come from a tech background. Yeah, obviously you've done the event stuff and likened it to that, but it's you're not gone into like the textbook sort of from scratch. So I guess my final question maybe is just, what have you, I guess what are you excited about sort of, you know, learning next, and, you know, what's kind of next for you on your, maybe like your personal kind of product journey, maybe aside from Dolphin? You know, what is it that you're kind of focusing on learning?
I love design. I don't know why. And when I mean design, it's not actually drawing or UI. I think more about the psychology behind design and how it actually applies into how we think about products and how we use products and why we use them. I am obsessed about the why of users, but also my why. Why, when someone tells me which product you love, I always think about the same product. I can say it or not, but I always think about the same one. So yeah, I love that. I love to learn more about the psychology behind why we use products, because I think that will make me a better founder, will make me a better product person. And I believe that today every founder should be a product manager in its own. If not, well, kind of like you're building a product for someone, so you need to be. So that's kind of like what I think on a daily basis. Yeah, quite obsessed with the realm of course, AI, data, and what we can do with it. It's crazy.
Nice. Yeah, really like. Well, Ilai, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks so much for your time. And yeah, we'll I'm sure lots of interesting insights there for people, and quite a different angle, which is really cool. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. It's been really amazing, and yeah, looking forward to speaking again soon.